Hey, welcome back to your channel where we learn new technologies with simple examples. So today we're going to be building an app to show how useReducer works and how you can integrate it with Typescript. By the way, if you're interested in web development and you like new technologies, then maybe you can consider subscribing. Let's get into it. So this is the example. It's basically a very simple form with two inputs. One is name, the other one is password, and there's a button below which is called submit. So we want to be able to have a control of the state of this app, and to do that we will use useReducers. So if you want, you can add more inputs. For example, copy and paste here and write email and placeholder also email. And if I save, you see we got the email here, but we don't want that for this example because I want to keep it as simple as possible. So I'm going to remove it and save. So you see there's a button within the form. That button is the submit button. That means if I click on submit, you see on top of the page that the page reloads automatically. I want to avoid that, and I'm going to write an onSubmit function here. I'm going to call onSubmit form, and this is going to be a function that we'll declare here. And so this function is going to receive an event, and the type of the event is React.form event. Here you can see if I write event dot, I have the help of TypeScript. Here it is prevent default, and that's what I want to do to avoid the page to refresh when I click on submit button. So I save, and you see there's no reload anymore. So that's okay. And now, I'm going to call onChange. And onChange will call a function called onChangeHandle, and I will declare it on top. So function onChangeHandler, and this is going to receive also an event. And the event has the type of React.change event. And we can console log here the event.target.value. And you see here I don't have the help. Value is not available, and that is because change event is an interface of that receives a T parameter, which means it's generic. And I can say now within brackets that that parameter has the type HTML input element. So now I got the help and there's no error anymore. And if I save now, then I can open the console. And if I type Frank, for example, then you see the name is below, so it's working fine. So I want to do the same with the password, so I can copy and paste this function. I can save and do the same test. Write F. I'm going to remove that, and I can write some letters. You can go to password and write pass, for example. Okay, so it's working fine. So I want to have a control of the name and of the password. So I'm going to write here a function within onChange, and this function is going to call a function called dispatch, and I'm going to declare dispatch on top because we're going to use here useReducer, and useReducer returns two things. So the first thing is the state, and the second thing is a function that we've called dispatch. And this function allows us to pass in an action, which is an object, and we can dispatch that action against a reducer. And a reducer is a function that receives an action and the current state of the app, and it returns based on the action a new state. So useReducer receives a reducer and an initial state. We're gonna declare here on top initial state, and initial state is gonna have a type of state type, and of course we can declare that type on top. So state type equals an object with two parameters. One is name, which is going to be a string, and the second one is a password, which is going to be a string too. So now the initial state, here you have the help of Typescript. So now the initial state can have a name, which is going to be an empty string, and a password, which is going to be also an empty string. So there's no error anymore with the initial state, you see? And now we have a reducer here. So I'm going to declare this function. So a reducer is basically a function that receives a state and also receives an action. And depending on the action, is going to return a new state modified. So the current state will have the type state type that we declared above. And the action is going to have a type of action type, but we haven't declared it yet. So we're going to write here type, action type, and it's going to be equal to an object with two parameters. One is type, which is going to be a string, and the second one is payload, which is also a string. So the type defines which action has been performed. For example, when we change the name or we change the password. And the payload is going to have the characters that we just wrote. For example, if I'm writing Fran in the name, the payload will be Fran in this case. We can also write here set name at set password, because we don't want to use any kind of type there, any kind of string, I mean. We want to use only set name and set password. As I said, our reducer has to return a state, so we can return the current state, which is the same as is coming from the first parameter, but for the time being is enough. So we can come back here and dispatch an action, which is the object with the type set name in this case, and a payload, which is going to be the characters that were just written. So in this case, it's going to be event target value. And we can come here to our reducer function and write that if the action received has the type set name, then we can return a state which is going to be a copy of the current state, but with the property name modified. So we got here current state with 3 dots, which is the spread operator to make a copy, and we can overwrite the name property with action.payload. And in fact, we're gonna delete on change handler because we don't need it anymore. And yeah, we can create here our new state and console log the new state to check if it's working fine or not. So there's an error, of course, and the error is, you see, we are using onChange handler, but that function doesn't exist anymore. We can delete it and save, and there it is. Let's check it. You see, it's working fine. We got our object, our state, name, fr. The password hasn't changed because we haven't typed anything there. And yeah, so we can copy and paste and do the same for the password. So I'm gonna copy these and I'm gonna paste it here on the password. And I'm gonna write set password in this case. And the action type now could be set passwords. So we have to copy and paste this block and change set password. So let's check if this works. Now I'm changing the name. Now I'm going to change the password. For example, I can write like. It's working fine, you see. We can make this a bit cleaner by deleting the console log and returning only this piece of code. Also, we don't need to declare the new state variable. The only purpose was to check that it was working fine. We can save now. And yeah, finally we can make our submit button work because now it's not working. So we can console log here. Your form has been successfully submitted. We can use our state here. Now if we fill again the form and click on submit button, you see your form has been successfully submitted. We have here object, but we can say here with name state.name and with password state.password. Let's try again. Fran, like, submit button, and your form has been successfully submitted with name Fran and password like. Hey, I hope you found that useful. I know useReducer can be a little bit hard at the beginning, especially if you're working with TypeScript, because there are some types in React that are not 100% intuitive at first, but you'll get used to it. So keep practicing. I hope you enjoyed it. Like and subscribe if you want more content, and see you soon.